When should I change my drum heads? This is a question that comes up a lot, and I think the answer is fairly simple, but it's not necessarily the answer that most people will tell you or that most people think of when trying to decide when to change their heads. What most people think when they're deciding whether to change their heads is that changing your heads will make your drums sound better. And I think that this can be true, but is not necessarily true. I think the only thing that you can guarantee when you change your heads, or anything about your drum set, I think this is the same as far as, when should I change my wires, my snare wires, or when should I change my hoops. And rather than guaranteeing that it will make the drum sound better, I think the only thing that it guarantees is that it will make the drum sound different. So if the drum doesn't sound like how you want it to sound currently, and you don't believe that there's anything you can do tuning-wise or setup-wise that can make it sound better or make it sound closer to what you want to hear in your head, then that might be the time to change your snares, your drum heads, your hoops, whatever it might be. What happens to a drum head over time is, first of all, the mylar, or the plastic, starts to stretch. And what this does is it makes the drum more dead. And I don't necessarily mean this in a bad way. We deaden our drums all the time with tape and moon gels and drum dots and whatever. So having a less ringy or a drier sounding drum isn't necessarily bad, but that is something that will happen over time as you play your heads more and more and as the mylar starts to stretch out. Now for some people, this is a bonus, this is a benefit. I had a drum set that I was going for that really, really dead sound, and I didn't change my heads for years on that kit. And this kit, which I've had for almost 2 years now, I've only changed the heads 2 or 3 times. For some of you, that might seem really frequent, and for some of you, it might seem like, oh my gosh, you should be changing them every couple of months. But it's really just personal preference. I wait until I get to the point where the drums don't have as much life as I want them to have, or that maybe the head choice that I was using isn't the sound I'm going for anymore, and then I will change the heads. So that's another reason to change your heads, is if you are using a type of head already that isn't the sound you're going for. So maybe you're using coated ambassadors and they're too ringy for you, or they don't have enough low end, and maybe you want to switch to coated emperors, right? So that might be a reason to change your heads. Another thing to keep in mind is that any dent or divot in the head is going to change how easy it is to tune and what it sounds like, the kind of overtones you get from it. Because what happens is you have this smooth head that is ideally vibrating like this, and anytime you get a divot or a little dent in the head, that wave that should be spreading uniformly across the head is going to go across that divot, and that part of the wave is going to travel at a slightly different rate of speed. And that creates different overtones, and it makes it sometimes harder to tune. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to change your heads if you have a dent or a divot in it, but it is something to watch out for. If you're having a tough time tuning your drum and you notice that it's dented, it's probably time for new heads. So again, the main point to take away from this is that changing anything about your drums, cymbals, hardware, whatever, anything about your setup is not going to guarantee that it will make it sound better. The only thing it will guarantee is that it will make it sound different. That might be better, that might be worse. I've changed out hoops on drums before and come to find out that it actually made the drum sound worse to my ears. To someone else it might have sounded better, but to me it sounded worse. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, does this drum sound like how I want it to sound? And if the answer is yes, don't change anything. Don't change anything if it already sounds like what you want it to sound like, just because you think you might be able to get it to sound better. If it sounds good, don't change anything. If it doesn't sound like how you want it to sound, can you change anything with tuning, your setup, anything that could get it closer to the sound you're looking for with what you currently have? And if the answer is no to that, then it's probably time to change something. So hopefully this helps some of you out there that are second guessing yourself and wondering whether you need to change your heads or not. If it sounds good, leave it. You don't need to change your heads unless you want something to sound different. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.